So in my mid 20s, I was getting healthier. I was going to the gym a lot more. I was eating better. I was getting fitter, stronger. I lost over 120 pounds, about 50 kgs. I was overcoming my addiction to X-rated content, to my severe, intense gambling, and things were looking on the up and up. I've talked to you about in the past. I used to struggle with stealing, and I used to struggle with shopping and different, just collecting just crazy expensive things. And I was way out of my budget, and I was screwing myself over. And so now, as I'm in my mid 20s, I'm stepping into this new realm of making better decisions. And, I just instead start getting really crotchety and angry. And that's probably because I was cutting so many calories at that point. But at this, I was, it was just life was changing. And instead of having a better control of my frustrations and angers and problems, I was just diverting my energy towards becoming more judgy, and just, I think looking down at people. So instead of looking inwards on my own behaviors and attitudes, I looked outwards, and I started to blame everybody around me, family, friends, teachers, coworkers. And I would say stuff like, in my mind, I'd be thinking, these people have no motivation. Why am I spending time with them? If anything, these people have been holding me down my whole life, and I need to break free from them. And all I kept doing then was shifting from place to place and, learning bad habits from people because I wasn't changing, the real problem, which was inside of me. So inevitably, I pretty much cut everything and everyone off for some time. I went cold turkey. And let me tell you, that did not really help. uh, if anything, I realized that nothing was changing, and all I was doing was becoming more and more isolated. I was going new places, but these new places were causing me to have bad habits. I was, meeting random women, or I was meeting random friends, and I was just replicating the same behaviors that I had before. So I was slipping back, not into the same addictions, but different addictions that I broke on off of from even a long time ago. And without that internal healing, that's usually what we end up doing. I found these new friends that I met were toxic. They were toxic. Of course, it's not me. And I started to wonder, is the whole world broken? And the answer is yes, absolutely, the whole world is broken. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. However, what I realized is that my fresh seedling, or my new seedling, or my roots in my developing relationship with God, or whatever analogy you want to envision, uh, even though I was planting it in new soil, sadly, I was somehow bringing new weeds and pouring liquid toxicity into my soil. And this was just, it's not good. It doesn't matter how far you run or who you hang out with. That's just a recipe for disaster. So since I had nowhere else to turn, I looked inward. I had nowhere else to go. And so I started to look around, and I said, okay, well, what are the things that everyone tells you to do? Well, started looking into counseling. And I went through years of long suffering and patience with myself and self control, because you need to build boundaries during these time frames to protect from the attacks from outside and the attacks from within, to cage the monster at time. And what I realized is that, most of the time I was the one causing people around to stumble. And that was a real tough pill to swallow for me. How could I have gotten to this place and point in my life where I was the one who was causing people to stumble? So as I healed, what I realized was that I was a social butterfly, because I was like trying to figure out this recipe, how could I be the one who was making people, eat bad, live bad, think bad, get angry, gamble, so on and so forth, when I was the one who was making these changes. And what I realized is that most of the people who came along with me were doing the activities and events just because they wanted to spend time with me. It wasn't because they were terrible or mean people. Sure, most of them weren't the healthiest themselves, and most of them weren't villains either. They were just doing life with me, and I was the one making the major decisions, and I was kind of the glue in a lot of these circumstances. Now, there were a few people who were villains, and there were some places and situations that were straight up terrible, and I did need to cut those people and situations and places off. And I really had to start practicing self-control and taking multiple steps back and saying I need to put up boundaries in this area of my life, this area of my life, this area of my life, so that I could start choking out these weeds and stop pouring toxicity into my life. And so this led me to let go of those people, but not let go of everyone like I was doing before. So I made amends with a lot of people. I came back into people's lives, and I started asking tougher and better questions. And some people, our worldviews didn't align at all. And I could still hang out with them. I've hung out with them over the years, decades now. But it's not the same when you have more of that self realization and reflection. And it led me to going some old places and some new places. It led me to a deeper sense of peace and a lot of moderation in my life, which I think is one of the greatest keys to us beating sins and bad habits. You got to look inside you first, whether or not you can remove yourself from the situation.